Chapter 474, Cooperation Suggestion. Since the ingredients needed for the corn steamed bun recipe were only corn flour, wheat flour, salt, and some sugar, the price could be cut down. After calculating for a moment, Shen Jinyu said, maybe 3 points for 2 steamed corn buns. The moment she said this, the customer's eyes widened in surprise. The woman asked, Sister, are you sure you want to sell 2 for 3 points? Well, the ingredients are not hard to come by, and the workload is not much. I think the price is fair, Shen Jinyu nodded. Then I want to order 20 for tomorrow, the woman said. When the customers heard this, they were unwilling to be left behind. One after another, they quickly placed their pre-order. Seeing this, Mother Shen quickly raised her hands and said, Everyone, we will not take any orders beforehand. We will only sell the food on the same day. First come, first served. After they heard this, everyone calmed down, but they made a note to come here early tomorrow. Mother Shen and Shen Jinyu exchanged glances as they decided to talk about this with Shen Jinj. At 9 o'clock in the morning, they finished selling their pancakes and returned home after closing their roadside stall. When they arrived at their apartment, they saw Shen Jinj was wiping his blade in the living room. Mother Yue, you are back. How was business today? He asked. Seeing her brother, Shen Jinyu's eyes lit up. She placed the items she carried in the kitchen before she said, Brother, everything is sold out. Shen Jinj thought for a moment and said, It seems that the survivors are doing better than I thought. The price of our family's scallion pancake is not cheap, but it sold out so fast. We only prepared 300 pancakes. Of course, it sold out in a few hours, Mother Shen replied with a satisfied smile. After drinking some water, Shen Jinyu took out a notebook from her belt bag and sat beside her brother. She wrote down the income from today's business and also the cost of ingredients. When she was done, she looked at her brother and said, Brother, although some people can afford our pancakes, most of them are still unwilling to spend money. Some of them even asked us to sell cheaper but filling food. I suggested a corn steamed bun with a price of 3 points for 2 steamed buns. Guess what their reaction is, she added. Shen Jinj raised his eyebrows and replied, According to our basis price for food, most people will be willing to buy. Even though corn flour is cheaper than white flour, the cost for a gas cylinder is not low. Shen Jinyu nodded at her brother's words and said, If we spend points to buy the ingredients from the base, at most we can earn around 15% of net income from the total income. So, I was wondering if it's possible for us to work with your team. Our family will be the one managing the store, while your team will be responsible for preparing the ingredients. Noticing that her brother said nothing and only stared at her, she quickly added, We can split the net income. Our family takes 30% and your team takes 70%. Thinking about the amount of supplies the Phantom team owned and their meeting yesterday, Shen Jinj said, I can't decide on this matter. I have to go ask my captain first. Sure, Shen Jinyu nodded. Under his sister's nagging, Shen Jinj finally left his house and went to visit his captain. When he arrived, almost all of the members were present. Seeing them, he asked, Are we having a meeting? Ziro Kai shook his head and asked him back, Brother Jinj, have you heard about the mutant snake news? Mutant snake? My brother and his team encountered a mutant snake when they went out to collect supplies yesterday. They managed to kill the mutant snake and brought it back. It was sold to the base for 1,350 crystal cores, Chen Qianfeng explained. After learning the news, we came to visit the captain and see if our team will also go out to hunt for mutant animals, Feng Yun added. Just after he finished his words, Zhao Lijai came out from the kitchen while holding a basket of strawberries. The moment they saw the strawberries, the members were stunned. After a moment, Zhou Huajian asked, Sister-in-law, where did you get the strawberries? I bought it from the marketplace. The seller said these strawberries were found outside, and from a mutant strawberry bush. Zhao Lijai spout lies without blinking. Due to the news of the mutant snake, no one doubted her words. Everyone gathered at the low table and stared at the strawberries. Besides the size being larger and the color brighter, the strawberries looked like normal strawberries. Taking a piece of strawberry, Zhao Lijai ate it and said, Don't worry, we tested it, and it's free from the zombie virus. Smelling the sweet fragrance, everyone took a piece and tried it. While they were eating the strawberries, Shen Jinj recalled his purpose for visiting and said, Sister-in-law, my sister wants to open a store selling food and snacks. She wants to know if our team is willing to cooperate. Jinj, why did your sister suddenly have this idea? Chen Qianfeng asked. Shen Jinj swallowed the strawberry in his mouth and explained, "My mother and my sister are selling scallion pancakes in the marketplace, but the price was not cheap. So, some of their customers asked them to sell cheaper but filling food. They want to sell corn-steamed buns and ask us to provide the ingredients. They will manage the store, and the net income will be split 30% for them and 70% for our team." When Zhao Lijai heard this, she thought for a moment before she asked, "Brother Shen, instead of selling food, would your family be interested in opening a supermarket?" "Sister-in-law, what do you mean?" Shen Jinj asked after he heard Zhao Lijai's words. "With the emergence of mutant plants and mutant animals, it's possible for us to bring some back and raise them domestically. As for the grains and other supplies, we can collect them outside. We can sell the excess supplies in your family's store. This way we don't have to worry that the supplies will rot," Zhao Lijai replied. "This is a good idea. Even if the supplies can last longer in our space, it still eventually spoils if stored for too long," Feng Yun nodded. Zhao Lijai only smiled when she heard this. While the space owned by space-type ability users had the ability to keep the items fresh for a longer time, their spaces still were not as good as hers. Her space could keep the items in the same condition as how they were stored. Sometimes, fresh ingredients such as vegetables and meats even became fresher after being stored in her space for a while, as if all the impurities were absorbed by her space. Seeing that everyone agreed to this suggestion, Zhao Lijai added, "As for the income, we will divide it equally. Your family and our team will both get 50%. When Shen Jinj heard this, he was sure that his mother and sister would agree with this proposal. So he nodded and said, "It's a deal. I will inform my family so they can find a location for the store and make the preparation. When everything is ready, I will inform you." Good. After leaving Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai's condominium, Shen Jinj returned to his house to inform his family. When he arrived, the family had been waiting for him. Seeing him return, Shen Jinyu asked, "Brother, how is it? Did your team agree to our suggestion?" Shen Jinj sat down on the couch, drank some water before he said, "I have discussed it with my team, and they agree to cooperate with us." Hearing this, the Shen family members were overjoyed. With the Phantom team as their business partner and backing, they did not have to worry about people looking for trouble when they opened the shop, nor did they have to worry about running out of ingredients. After they calmed down, Shen Jinj continued, "But the store will not be selling food only." "Aitg, what do you mean by that?" Father Shen asked. "My team has excess supplies, and we want to sell them in the store. The team will be responsible for preparing the items for sale, and our family will be responsible for managing the store," Shen Jinj replied. "Brother, you mean that your team wants to open a grocery store?" Shen Jinyu asked. Shen Jinj thought for a moment, nodded, and said, "You can say so." "Then how about the price?" Mother Shen asked. "Since the base also sells supplies, we can just follow their price. In order to avoid people hoarding the supplies, we will limit the purchase too," Shen Jinj said after thinking for a moment. "It is not a problem, but what about the place to store the supplies? Our family does not have a space-type ability user," Shen Jinyu said. "This matter will be discussed further with my captain's fiancé. For now, we need to apply for a business permit from the base and also rent a store," Shen Jinj replied. Hearing this, Mother Shen said, "Yue and I can go find the shop. As for the permit, it is better for you to go apply for it. Let us put the store under your team's name." Shen Jinj considered the pros and cons for a while before he nodded and said, "Okay, I will inform my captain's fiancé about this, then apply for the permit." "Good. It is almost noon. Let us eat first before we go look for the shop," Mother Shen said. Okay. While the Shen family was having a good time together, Zyro Kai was having a headache. He looked at the people kneeling in front of him and said, "Aunt, it is not that I am unwilling to help your family, but I am only a member of a mercenary team. What makes you think that I have the authority to appoint a position in the base?" "Zyro Kai, they are my husband's only relatives left in this world. I know you have limited capability, but you can at least find a way to help them, right?" Aunt Zyro asked with hope. Hearing this, Zyro Kai looked at his paternal aunt and said, "Aunt, they are your husband's family. From what I know, your husband's parents are still alive and doing well. Why don't they go find them and come to me instead?" "Zyro Kai, with your parents and siblings gone, I am your only relative now. Do you bear to see me not doing well?" Aunt Zyro asked again while glancing at the relatives. She was timid and used to being bullied by them. Right now, she was hoping that her nephew would give in to them so they stopped bothering her. Noticing his aunt's intention, Kai pushed away his aunt's hands on his arm and said, "Aunt, I have rescued you from the capital and brought you here. As your nephew, I have done my part. I do not owe you anything. Even if you are my only relative left in this world, you cannot morally blackmail me or force me to do anything I don't want to." The next moment he waved his hand, and a pile of supplies appeared in the room. He looked at his aunt and added, "This is the last time I give you supplies. You have to toughen up and survive on your own from now on." He glanced at the greed in his aunt's relative's eyes and said, "Aunt, if you don't want to save yourself, no one can save you. Take care of yourself." As soon as he left the room, Kai heard his aunt's relatives arguing with each other while his aunt shouted and cried anxiously. He knew that by giving the supplies to his aunt like this, those relatives would take them away, and his aunt would get nothing. But to force his aunt to see the reality, he had to harden his heart and let her face the cruelty of her husband's family. He took out a piece of chocolate from his pocket and ate it while walking out of the compound. The bittersweet taste spread in his mouth, dispersing some of his heavy mood. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath before he opened them again. After he controlled his emotions, he walked to the marketplace with a smile on his face as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, at the fourth ring area, Fuguari was walking around the base while observing the situation. After he regained his consciousness, he knew that he was no longer a complete human. When he saw the tender children, a part of him had the urge to take a bite of their flesh and drink their blood. His hunger would increase when he smelled the scent of human and animal blood. He thought that he had been injected with the zombie virus in the facility, but judging from the reaction of his primordial instinct, he was sure that, besides the zombie virus, the facility must have altered his DNA and combined it with another species' DNA. As for what type of species it was, he had no idea. Right now, he could only use his will to control his primordial instinct. He continued to walk until he reached the west gate. When the guards saw him leaving the base, one of them stopped him and said, "Comrade, the situation is dangerous outside. No one is allowed to go out alone." Hearing this, Fuguari took out his necklace and showed the guard the small metal plate. After seeing the plate, the guard lowered his hand and said, "So, it is Comrade Fu. Since you are a member of the Phantom team, you can go out, but make sure to stay safe." Fuguari nodded. Thinking about what Pei Yixi told him before he left the house, he took out a handful of caramel candies from his pocket and shoved them into the guard's hands. Without waiting for the guard to respond, he turned and walked out of the base. Standing at the gate, the guard was stunned. Holding a handful of caramel candies, he muttered to himself, "Are all of the Phantom team members so generous?" The last time they had received biscuits and water from Kai whenever the team left the base for a mission. Now, a new member had given him so many candies just because he reminded him to be careful. It seemed that the rumors about them being arrogant and ruthless were false. Not knowing what the guard was thinking, Fuguari continued walking down the road with large strides. With his current level, he would not feel tired even if he walked for 3 days without a break. Half an hour later, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and raised his head. He took several sniffs in the air before he suddenly ran to the left. The rusty iron scent in the air grew thicker as time passed by. Before he reached the source of the scent, he heard the sound of a loud explosion in the distance. Boom! Narrowing his eyes, he increased his speed and spread his palm. The next moment, long, sharp silver nails appeared on his fingertips. Even from a distance, he could see a large bird flying down at a fast speed. Its sharp beak and talons glistened under the sun as it flew toward the group of people below. "Dodge!" a man shouted when he saw the attack. The men quickly leaped in several directions to avoid the attack, but a woman was too scared to move, and she could only stand there with a pale face. Everyone thought that she would be a goner, but a moment before the sharp talons pierced the woman's body, a lean figure appeared in front of her. Clank! Crash! The giant eagle let out a high-pitched screech as one of its talons was cut off by Fuguari. Warm, red blood splattered on the ground and on his body, making his blood boil with excitement as the rustic scent filled his sense of smell. A silver glint flashed in his eyes for a moment. Then he reached out and grabbed the giant eagle's feet. With a pull, he yanked the eagle down and slammed it hard onto the ground. Boom! Due to the force, the ground cracked and shook slightly. Wind and sand fly, creating a layer of dust cloud. Tightening his grip on the giant eagle's feet, Fuguari swung his arm left and right. Boom! Booms! Boom! Everyone was stunned as they watched him continue slamming the giant eagle to the ground again and again. After a few minutes, several pits appeared in the cracked ground while the giant eagle lay motionless in a pool of blood. Fuguari breathed heavily as he controlled his bestial instinct to tear the eagle apart. He raised his hand and pierced the giant eagle's head with his sharp nail. Using both hands, he cracked open the eagle head and searched for something. Seeing this, the woman who was sitting on the ground not far from him let out a scream in terror. Ah! When Fuguari pulled out a crystal core from the giant eagle's head, clarity returned to his eyes. He turned and met the terrified gaze of the woman. "Please spare my life," she begged while crying. Her pale face was stained with snot and tears, and her hair was in a mess, making her look like a madwoman. Standing beside the dead eagle, Fuguari reached out his hand. A crystal the size of a quail egg lay in Fuguari's hand, while fresh blood dripped from the gap between his fingers to the ground. Seeing this, the woman did not dare to even breathe and could only shake her head. Thinking that she did not want the crystal, Fuguari nodded and put the crystal in his pocket. Then, he looked at the group of people and pointed at the eagle. "We do not want it," one of the men quickly said. "Brother, you are the one who killed it, so that thing is yours," another man added. Hearing this, Fuguari raised his eyebrows. For him, the most precious part of the mutant eagle was the crystal core, and he had already taken it. By right, the carcass should be given to this group. After all, he had come later and snatched their prey. He never expected that these people would be so polite and knew how to return kindness. Since they insisted, he also did not want to embarrass them by refusing. Recalling how Aitg always told him to smile when he was thanking others, he lifted the corner of his lips and nodded at them, when he saw them looking at him with wide eyes. He thought that he had already conveyed his thanks and held the eagle's feet. While he dragged away the giant eagle, one of the men heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I thought that man would kill us when he grinned so evilly." "Brother, I do not want to leave the base again," the woman cried out. After she said this, one of the men let out a snort and said, "If you only want to stay at the base, then you should find another team. I will not raise useless people." The woman finally shut up after she heard his words. After they regained their composure, the woman asked, "Brother, what should we do now? Our hours of effort were taken away by that man just like that." The boss glared at her and said, "What can we do besides go kill zombies, or do you want to go back empty-handed?" Facing his sharp gaze, the woman pouted and said nothing. She was lucky to awaken her water-type ability during the second rain and managed to join this team after being rejected by other teams. It was impossible for her to leave the team. After all, she could only create 2 liters of water before her energy was drained. Even if she went to work at the water reservoir area, she could only earn a handful of points daily. It was better to join this team and follow them. With this thought, she softened her voice and pulled at the boss's clothes while saying, "Brother, I was wrong. Please do not be angry with me." Seeing that she knew her mistake, the man let out a sigh and said, "Even if our team is only an F-rank team, we still have to complete our mission. Otherwise, we will never be able to rank up. So, work harder and stop whining." "I understand," the woman said with a lowered head. "Let us go, we should finish the mission before sunset," the boss said, and led his team in another direction. As the team left, the woman turned to look in Fuguari's direction while rubbing her wrist. When Fuguari dragged the giant eagle back to the base, it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The guards were taken aback when they saw him dragging a massive bird with ease. From on top of the guard tower, one of the guards shouted, "Open the gate, someone brought back a giant eagle." The moment he said this, the guards and survivors who were present turned to look outside instantly. Standing outside the gate, Fuguari looked at the eagle and the gate. Judging by the size, the eagle would not fit through the gate. After thinking for a moment, he grabbed the eagle and carried it on his back. While everyone was looking at him in astonishment, he bent his knees and leaped to the top of the wall. Before the guards could ask anything, he jumped down and landed with a loud thud. The road inside the base was wide, so he dragged the giant eagle all the way back to the apartment area. Before he reached the apartment building, the news about someone killing a giant eagle had already spread in the base. The survivors cheered at this news, thinking that they would have meat dishes in the next few days. With the base buying the mutant animals from the ability users and selling the meat dishes, the base could earn extra income while making it convenient for the ability users to sell their loot. This was a win-win situation, and everyone reached a tacit understanding that every mutant animal would be sold to the base. When Wen Hanley received the report, he had already calculated the maximum price the base could offer and thought about the items and weapons that could be produced using the giant eagle's body parts. He waited in his office, thinking that someone would come to inform him regarding the transaction, but after waiting for more than 30 minutes, no one came. Feeling curious, he made a phone call and asked, "I heard that one of the Phantom team members killed a giant eagle. When will he come to the supply and marketing store to sell his loot?" On the other side of the phone, a staff member was confused and said, "Vice Commander, the guard said that he carried his loot back to his apartment. I do not think he has any plan to sell the mutant eagle to us." Hearing this, Wen Hanley was disappointed, but his voice remained calm. "I see. If he comes, inform me immediately." "Understood," the staff member replied. After hanging up the call, Wen Hanley let out a sigh and said, "What a pity." From the test result of the mutant snake, they found out that the mutant animals contained a small amount of energy. Compared to the normal animals, the nutritional value of the mutant animals' meat was also higher, and its benefit even reached the commoners. By consuming the meat, the ability users could recover their energy and improve their levels, while the commoners could improve their health and strengthen their bodies. The shelf time of the products made from the mutant animals was also longer than normal animals. So while the risk of hunting down the mutant animals was high, it was worth the effort. While Wen Hanley was thinking about forming several groups to hunt the mutant animals, Fu Guari had already carried the mutant eagle back to the apartment area. At this moment, Shen Jinj had just returned from the public bureau hall to get the business permit. When he saw the giant eagle, he walked over and asked, "Brother Fu, when did you go out and kill this eagle?" Hearing this, Fu Guari wrote on Shen Jinj's palm, "I went out after lunch. I met a group almost killed by this eagle, so I helped. They were very polite and generous and gave me this eagle." Shen Jinj was taken aback by this and said, "It is rare for people to still have basic manners in our current situation." Fu Guari nodded in agreement and wrote again, "If I meet them again, I will treat them to a meal." "Then what do you plan to do with this?" Shen Jinj asked. Just after he finished his words, Zhao Lijai arrived as she had just returned from the water reservoir area. "Wow, such a plump, big eagle," she said in surprise. The moment Fu Guari saw her, he blocked her gaze as if she was a food thief. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai chuckled and said, "Brother Fu, do not worry. I will not take away your food anymore." After he heard this, Fu Guari stared at her for a moment before he relaxed. Zhao Lijai took out a mobile phone from her space and handed it to him while saying, "Brother Fu, it is inconvenient for you to go out alone without Sister Yuxi, so I think it is better for you to carry this. You can write what you want to say in the Notes app." Fu Guari accepted the mobile phone and noticed that it was fully charged. He opened the notes and typed something before he showed the phone to her. "I want to make meat jerky using this bird. Help me." Zhao Lijai read the note and replied, "No problem." With a wave of her hand, the giant eagle was collected into her space. She would process the giant bird later using the air fryer in her space. Seeing this, Shen Jinj thought that she would process the bird in her apartment and did not ask anything. As the three of them walked to the apartment building, he said, "Sister-in-law, I already applied for a business permit to the base." "How much is the cost?" Zhao Lijai asked. "It is 100 crystal cores for a year. I already paid for a year's permit. When my mother and sister find the store and clean it up, we can open the store," Shen Jinj said. "If you need any help to clean up the store, just let me know," Zhao Lijai nodded. "Okay." After they parted ways, Zhao Lijai went to take a shower and prepare dinner. Not long after, Jin Zuyan returned, covered in rotten flesh and black blood. "Brother Yan, what happened?" Zhao Lijai asked when she saw his condition. "I went out with Zun Qi to check the situation on the border and cleaned up some zombies. We met a group of zombie rats," Jin Zuyan replied. "Zombie rats, did you clean them up?" Zhao Lijai asked with a frown. Jin Zuyan nodded and replied, "We might need to check the underground water channels later. It will be troublesome if the zombie rats infiltrate the base." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai knew the seriousness of the matter and said, "You should take a shower first." She held his hand, and the two of them entered her space. The moment Jin Zuyan entered her space, the rotten flesh and black blood on his body turned into black mist and were absorbed by the space. While he was taking a shower, Zhao Lijai created a water ball and heated it up. When it was boiling, she poured the hot water on the giant eagle before she started plucking the feathers. Each feather was at least 1 meter long and 30 centimeters wide. The feathers were soft but strong and tough. If they were made into armor or clothes, the survivors would be able to protect themselves from zombie attacks and withstand the cold winter. With this thought, she plucked the feathers carefully so as not to damage them. When she was halfway done plucking the feathers, Jin Zuyan had already changed into a set of clean clothes and walked over. He tied the apron around his waist and started helping her pluck the feathers while asking, "Aitg, where did you get this mutant eagle?" This mutant eagle was brought back by brother Fu Guari. He asked me to help him process this eagle into meat jerky, Zhao Lijai explained. Jin Zuyan let out an "oh" and stopped asking. The two of them spent 3 hours cleaning up the mutant eagle. When they were done, Zhao Lijai poured the eagle's blood into a water tank. While the blood tasted bad when made into dishes, it could be used as an ingredient for fertilizer. The bones, talons, beak, and feathers were all good materials for armor and weapons. As for the organs and inedible parts, Zhao Lijai buried them in the grassland. After they were done, Zhao Lijai created water balls to clean up the area and went to take a bath. The two of them had dinner together before they left the space and went to sleep. In the last 3 days, the Phantom team members were busy helping Shen Jin's family clean up the storefront and the warehouse they had bought from the base. Since this was a joint business between the team and Shen Jin's family, the members decided to use the team's funds to buy the storefront and warehouse. This way, they did not have to worry about being driven out when the business flourished. As for Zhao Lijai, she went to the reservoir area and the base's farmland every day to supply water and improve her water-type ability. Today was the 4th day since Zun Qi's team and Jin Zuyan discovered the zombie rats at the border of Linen City. When the sun rose over the horizon, Jin Zuyan, Qin Luzi, Yin Yusheng, Fu Guari, and the Eagle team were on their way to check the location around the border. Sitting in the passenger seat inside the armored vehicle, Yin Yusheng said, "Captain, this will be the last location we need to check. When we are done, our team's store should be ready for business too. Will we take another mission?" Jin Zuyan thought for a moment and replied, "We might need to stay in the base for a while until we are sure there are no more threats." Hearing this, Qin Luzi asked, "Captain, are you worried that there is another threat besides the zombie rats?" Jin Zuyan nodded and explained, "Although our team and the guards always burn the zombies' corpses, it does not mean that others do the same. These zombie rats appeared because they ate zombie corpses, not because of natural mutation. Besides rats, cockroaches, and other small animals might also eat the corpses due to the limited food supplies, so the chance of other zombified animals appearing is not zero." When they heard his words, Qin Luzi and Yin Yusheng felt their scalps tingle just imagining the situation if zombie cockroaches attacked the base. With their small size, tough shells, and agility, it would be hard to kill them all. It would take a lot of effort to eliminate them, while humans could be infected by the zombie virus with even a small wound caused by the zombie cockroaches. By then, the whole base might be destroyed in less than a day. Noticing their expressions, Jin Zuyan added, "So, we need to eliminate all possibilities for that to happen." While Qin Luzi and Yin Yusheng nodded, Fu Guari was lost in thought. After he regained his consciousness, he slowly regained his memories regarding the facility. From the memories he had recently recovered, there seemed to be several people called elders who made decisions in the facility. Unfortunately, he could not recall more information about these elders, otherwise he would have started investigating them. 2 hours later, they finally reached the border area. Qin Luzi checked the map in his mind and looked around. Besides the empty, abandoned houses, there was nothing in sight. "Captain, there might be zombie rats in this area," he said. The red dots on his map were so dense that it looked like his map had been dyed red, but with no zombies in the area, the possibility of zombie rats was very high. Hearing his words, Jin Zuyan took out his walkie-talkie and said, "Old Wei, be careful. This area might be infested with zombie rats." "Okay," Wei Wang's voice replied a moment later. After they parked their cars, the Eagle team joined Jin Zuyan's team and took out their guns. While the guns were not as effective as their abilities, they were still useful in an emergency. "Jin Zuyan, should we go inside and check the situation?" Wei Wang asked. Recalling the situation when he and Zun Qi's team encountered the zombie rats for the first time, Jin Zuyan shook his head and said, "It is too dangerous. Let us place the bait and wait." "Okay," Wei Wang nodded. After they found an open field, one of the Eagle team's members took out several buckets of blood and placed them at the center of the field. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan asked, "Old Wei, where did you get this blood?" "It is provided by Zun Qi. Those are the mutant snake's blood." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan said nothing. After they dug a 1-meter-deep ditch around the blood, they retreated to a building located 100 meters away. Standing on the rooftop, they could see the situation clearly. 15 minutes later, they heard the sound of chirping and squeaking coming from the distance. Not long after, the ground shook, and a hole appeared not far from the buckets of snake blood. Seeing this, Qin Luzi said, "It is the zombie rats." Everyone stared at the open field, and saw the dense swarm of rats rushing over like a black tide. Witnessing the scene, they felt their scalps tingle, and goosebumps rose on their arms. Even as soldiers, they still felt disgusted and unsettled when they saw the number of zombie rats. 10 minutes later, the entire open field was almost filled with black waves. Seeing this, Wei Wang asked, "Are all of the zombie rats here?" Qin Luzi checked his map and shook his head. "It is only 1/3 of the total number of zombie rats in the area. The rest are still trapped underground." The moment he said this, everyone was taken aback. Judging by the rough amount, the number of zombie rats should be more than 30,000. If it was only 1/3 of the total, then the zombie rats in this area would be almost 100,000. "Captain, what should we do now?" Yin Yusheng asked. "We cannot wait any longer. The scent of the snake's blood will only last for 3 hours at most. Before that, we have to clean up the zombie rats," Jin Zuyan said. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Old Qin, I need to borrow your wind." As soon as he heard this, Qin Luzi could guess his captain's intention and said, "Captain, the number of zombie rats is too many. It will be too dangerous for you to go there." "Do not worry, I know what I am doing," Jin Zuyan replied. Then Jin Zuyan turned to Fu Guari and said, Fu, I need you to copy old Qin's tornado later." Fu Guari nodded and made an OK sign. "Old Wei makes sure that no zombie rats escape," Jin Zuyan said before he leaped from the rooftop and dashed toward the open field. Seeing this, Qin Luzi followed after him. When they were 10 meters away from the zombie rats, he waved his hand and the wind grew stronger. Soon after, tornadoes formed and swept away the zombie rats. Jin Zuyan raised his hand, and several huge black fireballs flew toward the tornadoes. Booms, 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 boom. The fireballs exploded upon contact with the tornadoes. In less than a second, the black fire merged with the tornadoes under Jin Zuyan's control. To make sure that no zombie rats were able to reach his captain's location, Qin Luzi created a wind barrier around Jin Zuyan. Floating above the zombie rats, he snapped his fingers and manipulated the atoms in the air. Boom, booms, boom. Explosions were heard one after another, killing group after group of zombie rats. Unlike zombies, zombified animals were not picky. The moment the nearby zombie rats were killed, the surrounding zombie rats would pounce on the carcasses and eat them clean, leaving nothing but rancid stench and black blood on the ground. Seeing this, Qin Luzi frowned in disgust. While he held back his urge to vomit, Jin Zuyan already combined the tornadoes into one massive tornado. As the fire tornado swept through the zombie rats, it burned those blocking its path into ashes. Those swept into the tornado were torn apart before being burned into ashes. While this attack was effective, it consumed a lot of energy. What was more, the zombie rats were not as stupid as low-level zombies. The moment half of them were turned into ashes, the rest of the zombie rats started to retreat. Their survival instinct made them fear the fire tornado and warned them to escape. Standing on the rooftop, Wei Wang saw this and said, "Block the hole, do not let the zombie rats escape." Understood. Following his order, several metal and earth-type ability users created a metal wall and an earth wall to block the zombie rats' escape route. With the hole blocked, the zombie rats had nowhere to go. "Captain, there are some rats still inside the hole. If we block the hole, we will not be able to kill them all," one of his members said. "Right now, we can only focus on the larger number. We will take care of the rest later," Wei Wang said. Since the captain had already made the decision, the members nodded and followed his order. As for Yin Yusheng and Fu Guari, the two of them exchanged glances before they leaped from the rooftop and went to the area where the zombie rats were escaping. Before they arrived in the area, Fu Guari had already waved his hand, and several tornadoes appeared in front of the hole, blocking the rats from escaping. At the same time, smaller tornadoes went into the underground tunnels and swept the zombie rats inside. Booms, boom. 10 minutes later, the ground shook, and several tornadoes burst out from underground, throwing the zombie rats into the air. With several underground tunnels blocked by his tornadoes, the zombie rats could only run toward the newly opened holes. As soon as the rats came out of the holes, several black fireballs flew toward their locations. Boom, booms, boom. With the black fireballs merged with the smaller tornadoes, Jin Zuyan flicked his wrist, and the tornadoes turned into flame towers that shot into the holes, burning the rest of the zombie rats hiding inside. Standing on the rooftop in the distance, the members of the Eagle team were stunned. They looked at the battle with astonishment, and one of them said, "Captain, I never expected the Phantom team's members to be this powerful." According to their current strength, they must have broken through to level 1. As for Captain Jin, he should be at least a level 3 ability user, Zyro Han said after observing for a while. Level 1, Vice Captain, I have met several level 1 ability users, but none of them had destructive power equal to the members of the Phantom team, the member said with doubt. After he said this, Wei Wang explained, the difference is not the level, but the amount of their abilities' energy and also their battle experience. Most people would choose to fight alone when they awaken their abilities. Even if they join a team and have good teamwork, they will not find a way to maximize their attack power by combining their abilities at all. All of you can learn from the Phantom team and find ways to combine your attack skills. This way, we can increase the attack power while consuming less energy. It will be very beneficial during prolonged battle situations, he added. Hearing this, the Eagle team members recalled their situation during their last mission and nodded. If not for their arrogance and lack of tacit understanding, they would not have been trapped by the mutant plants, and their comrades would not have died tragically. If not for the Phantom team, they might have become fertilizer for that mutant plant. Thinking about this, they realized they still had not thanked them properly. Not knowing that the Eagle team was discussing them, Jin Zuyan was going on a rampage, while Qin Luzi constantly checked his map. Captain, a group of zombie rats is escaping through the tunnel located at the northeast, he said. Fu Guari. Hearing his name, Fu Guari dashed toward the northeast tunnel and slammed his palm on the ground. The next moment, a thick layer of ice wall blocked the tunnel. Bangs, bangs, bang. Sounds of the zombie rats slamming against the ice wall echoed in the tunnel. Narrowing his eyes, Fu Guari clenched his fist, and the ice wall turned into countless ice needles that pierced the zombie rats. Stab, stab, stab. Even though no one could see the situation inside the underground tunnel, judging from the high-pitched shrieks of the zombie rats, the possibility of them surviving the attack was nearly zero. Qin Luzi checked his map and saw a group of red dots stop moving before fading away. He glanced at Fu Guari, and surprise flashed in his eyes. The members knew that Fu Guari had a unique ability to clone other people's skills. He did not find it surprising since someone could even control shadows, but he never expected him to be so good at controlling the skill he copied. Although the attack power was only around 70% of the original skill he copied, with his level, the destructive power could not be underestimated. Combined with how good he was at manipulating his energy and combining the skills he copied, he might be on par with the captain. Reaching this conclusion, Qin Luzi heaved a silent sigh of relief. Fortunately, this person was a friend and not a foe. Otherwise, he might have given their team a lot of headaches if they met in battle. While the Phantom team members were busy clearing the zombie rats, Cheng Yue and Cheng Rui finally arrived at the Linen City border. The two of them were covered in dust and looked visibly haggard. With a scarf covering half of his face, Cheng Rui turned to his brother and said, Yue, do you think the situation in Linen City will be better than the other cities? Cheng Yue brushed his hair and replied hoarsely, It took us 5 days to finally reach the border from Pingjiang City. The number of zombies has increased significantly after the rain. With the addition of the emergence of mutant animals and mutant plants, I doubt the situation in this city will be much better than other places. It was rare to hear his brother talk so much, so Cheng Rui glanced at him and thought about the situation they encountered along the way. A moment later, he noticed the black fire tornadoes in the distance and said, Yue, do you see that? Cheng Yue nodded and said, It seems that someone is fighting over there. The moment he said this, Cheng Rui's eyes lit up and he said, Let's go and see who it is. Such a wide-range attack, he must be very strong. Before Cheng Yue could refuse, his brother had already driven his motorbike toward the direction of the fire tornadoes. Heaving a tired sigh, he had no other choice but to follow after him. After driving for half an hour, the two of them stared at the massive hole in the road. Seeing this, Cheng Rui said, The road in this city is worse than Pingjiang City. it seems that we can't use the motorbike. Cheng Yue nodded and carried his backpack, leaving the motorbike behind. Since the road was too damaged, they could only walk. Without the motorbike, the two of them circulated their energy and dashed toward the direction of the battle. At this moment, their speed was faster than the motorbike. In less than 20 minutes, they stood on top of a rooftop of a 5-story building, not far from the Eagle team. Yue, do you think those two groups are together or not? Cheng Rui asked while rubbing his unshaved chin. Cheng Yue observed the group not far from them and said, I didn't detect any hostility from them toward the group who was fighting. I don't know if they were together, but they were definitely not foes. When he heard this, Cheng Rui frowned, and disappointment was clear in his voice as he said, if they are friends, then we can't use them to test each other and find out about their strength. We came here to seek a safe place to settle down. Don't mess around, I'm tired of traveling around, Cheng Yue warned him. Meeting his brother's cold gaze, Cheng Rui raised both of his hands and said, Okay, I won't mess around. At the same time, Chin Luzi had already noticed them. He turned to stare in their direction and thought that the blue dots seemed not as rare as he had thought. Besides his captain, his sister-in-law, Mo Junji, the Pei siblings and Li Kixuan, now there were another 2 blue dots. While the depth of the blue color varied, their dots were indeed in the range of colors mixed with blue. It seemed that the blue color represented something, but what was it? While Chin Luzi was thinking about the possibility that the blue dots represented, the battle finally concluded as Jin Zuyan burned the last group of zombie rats into ashes. Standing in the middle of the open field, Chin Luzi checked the map for a while before he said, Captain, this area has been cleared. Jin Zuyan nodded and said, Pick up the crystal cores. Since he could not help much during the battle, Yin Yusheng took the initiative to pick up the crystal cores. Without their space-type ability users, he stored the crystal cores in his backpack. Compared to the zombies, the zombie rats had fewer crystal cores, and most of them were transparent crystal cores. Only a few were elemental-type crystal cores. Everyone would receive equal rewards when they reported back to the mission hall. If they did nothing, they would feel too embarrassed. So seeing that the battle had concluded, the Eagle team joined them in picking up the crystal cores. Standing on the rooftop not far from them, Cheng Rui rubbed his chin and said, They are indeed a group. Turning to his brother, he asked, Yue, should we go greet them now? Hearing this, Cheng Yue shook his head and said, From their badge, they are from the Linen City base. We only need to follow after them. You can see their badges from this distance, Cheng Rui asked with doubts. This time, Cheng Yue did not answer his brother's question and only gave him a side glance. Although the two of them had experienced similar experiments in the facility, they had still undergone different tests and were injected with different solutions. It was normal for Cheng Yue and Cheng Rui to have different body constitutions now. An hour later, the Eagle team and the Phantom team finally finished picking up the crystal cores. After handing the crystal cores to them, Wei Wying asked, Jin Zuyan, now that we are done with this area, are we going back now? Before going back, there is something my team needs to do, Jin Zuyan said. The moment he finished his words, Fu Guari suddenly disappeared and rushed toward the location where the Cheng brothers were hiding. Seeing this, Wei Wying and his team members were shocked. They knew that there was an ability user who awakened an invincibility type ability, but that person was a member of Gu Xiao's team, and he was only a teenager. How could the new member of the Phantom team also have this ability? Noticing their confusion and doubts, Jin Zuyan said, Fu Guari is not a dual-type ability user. If he is not a dual-type ability user, then how could he have a wind-type ability and now the invincibility-type ability? Zyro Han asked. Captain Wei, this is his secret. We have no right to tell you, Yin Yusheng replied with a smile. Since they had said so, Wei Wying and his team members stopped asking about Fu Guari's ability. At the same time, Fu Guari already stood not far from the Cheng brothers. He observed them for a while, and when he didn't notice any killing intent from them, he reappeared and pulled out his phone. The moment he reappeared, Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue were stunned. They turned around and raised their hands, ready to get into a battle, but when they saw the man typing on his phone, they exchanged glances and waited. When he finished typing on his phone, Fu Guari showed the screen to them. Seeing this, Cheng Rui hesitated for a moment before he walked closer and read the words on the phone. Who are you? Why did you spy on my team? He read. Well, my brother and I came from Pingjiang City and are looking for Linen City base. We thought that your team might know the location of the base and plan to follow you, he explained. Hearing this, Fu Guari typed on his phone again before he showed it to him. Cheng Rui read the words and said, "It's not that we didn't want to ask you openly or that we had bad intentions. We didn't know if you and your team were bad or good guys, so we decided to observe first." While Fu Guari didn't trust his words, he still nodded and typed another sentence. "You can follow me and meet with my captain first." After reading the words, Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue nodded. Afterward, the two of them followed Fu Guari to meet the rest of the group. The reason they followed him was not only because they wanted to ask for directions, but also because they couldn't detect his presence, even when he stood so close to them. Logically speaking, with their current levels, they would be able to detect other ability users' presence even from 20 meters away. If they were unable to detect him, there were only two possibilities. First, this person's level was at least 2 levels above theirs. Second, this person's ability allowed him to conceal his presence perfectly. Out of all the abilities they knew existed, only stealth-type ability users were able to do this. While they were sure that Fu Guari was a stealth-type ability user, they reached the open field area. When they stood a few meters away from the Eagle team and the Phantom team, surprise flashed in their eyes the moment they saw Jin Zuyan's face. They never thought that they would be able to meet the legendary case of the facility. According to the information they gathered from eavesdropping on the facility's staff members, the person in front of them was the most successful experiment subject since the facility was established. Unfortunately, before the facility injected the last solution and completed the experiment, the test subject escaped from the facility and disappeared. If not for the picture they found in the confidential archive, they would never be able to recognize him. After all, this test subject looked so normal, unlike most of the test subjects in the facility. Noticing their probing gazes, Jin Zuyan narrowed his eyes and asked, "What do you want by spying on my team?" Hearing his words, Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue were pulled out of their thoughts. "Comrade, we are looking for the Linen City base's location. Since your team was the first group we encountered since we came to this city, we wanted to ask you for directions," Cheng Rui explained with a smile. "Are you coming after receiving the radio announcement?" Zyro Han asked. Even though Cheng Rui didn't know what radio announcement he was referring to, he still nodded and asked, "Comrade, can you show us the way?" When they heard that the two of them were looking for a safe place to stay, the Eagle team was delighted. After the zombie attack, their base was in need of manpower. If they could recruit more ability users, it would help their base grow stronger. "We are going back to the base now. Both of you can follow us," Zyro Han said. "Then we have to bother you and your team." "Thank you," Cheng Rui replied. Looking at his clear eyes and innocent expression, the Eagle team members instantly had a good impression of him. While they chatted with Cheng Rui, the Phantom team members said nothing. After they went to their armored vehicle, Chin Luzi said, "Captain, those two men are not simple. They should be at least level 2 ability users, and their abilities might not be ordinary." Jin Zuyan nodded at his words and said, "After we return to the base, keep an eye on them." Understood. Meanwhile, at Jiangning City, Pei Zun was looking at a pregnant woman who was tied to an operating table inside a room through the glass wall. Standing beside him, an old man read the data and said, "This is the only experimental subject that has managed to survive the test so far. Make sure that there are no more mistakes like before. Tighten the security and keep a close eye on them. I don't want to receive a report that our experimental subjects have escaped again," Pei Zun warned sternly. Hearing the blame in his tone, Professor Wen glared at him and said, "You should tell your subordinates about this instead of me. If not because of their negligence, would someone be able to steal my data and experimental samples? If not because of your arrogance, would the subjects have escaped and created a ruckus at Linen City? Now I have to do all of the tests again. Do you know how much time we have wasted because of this?" he asked angrily. After he finished his words, Professor Wen turned and walked away in large strides. Whenever he thought about his lost data and samples, he felt the urge to beat someone. Looking at his hunched back, Pei Zun narrowed his eyes and turned to a young man beside him. "Have you found out who stole the data?" The young man lowered his head and replied, "We already interrogated the guards who were responsible for guarding the laboratory in the capital, but we couldn't get anything out of them." "Try to use the memory solution," Pei Zun said. Commander, we already injected 5 bottles of the memory solution, but we can't find anything. It is as if someone had erased or blocked their memories, the young man replied. Increase the dose. Hearing this, the young man was taken aback and said, Commander, if we increase the dose, their brains will suffer heavy damage. They won't survive. Pei Zun glanced at the man and said with a smile, Sacrifice is unavoidable to reach our ultimate goal. When he heard this, the young man understood that those guards had no other choice but to die in the interrogation room. With his current position, he had no right to go against the commander's order. So he nodded and replied, Understood. Pei Zun reached out to pat the young man's shoulder, narrowed his eyes and said, Ruyu, if you want to climb high, you have to step on others. Don't disappoint me. Yuan Ruyu clenched his fists tightly and replied, Commander, my life is yours. I won't let you down. Finally hearing what he wanted to hear, Pei Zun smiled and said, Good, I will leave this matter to you. After he said these words, he turned and left. Standing there, Yuan Ruyu stared at the pregnant woman inside the room with reddened eyes. If not because of his mission, he would make sure to kill Pei Zun and that psychopath, Wen Bo. Thinking about his captain's order, he took several deep breaths to calm down. When he walked out of the laboratory, he had already returned to his cold expression and went to the underground prison to interrogate the guards personally. At the same time, Pei Yijun and his team were outside the base. Bangs, bangs, bang. The sound of explosions echoed in the area as lightning bolts struck the mutant wild boars. Be careful, don't face them head-on, Pei Yijun warned his team while dodging a mutant wild boar's attack. Boom! The mutant wild boars were 10 times larger than a normal wild boar. Their tusks were sharp and strong, reaching almost 2 meters long with almost 40 centimeters in diameter. While they were not as agile as other mutant animals, their attack power was not to be underestimated. Several of Pei Yijun's team members suffered heavy injuries after being pierced by the tusks and trampled by the mutant wild boars. After letting out a high-pitched shriek, the biggest wild boar dashed toward Pei Yijun, aiming its sharp tusks at him. With his right thigh wounded, his speed decreased, and he could not dodge the attack in time. Seeing the incoming tusks, he waved his hand and threw several lightning balls toward the mutant wild boar, hopping to slow it down. Booms, 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 boom. Despite being hit directly by the attack, the wild boar did not slow down at all. Instead, it sped up and let out heavy snorts due to anger. Seeing this, Li Yang rushed over while shouting, Brother Pei. Boom! The moment before the sharp tusks pierced Pei Yijun, Li Yang appeared in front of him and punched the wild boar's jowl. Due to his attack, the wild boar's tusks missed the target. Noticing that the wild boar was stunned by his attack, Li Yang unsheathed his blade and swung it upward. Crash, crack. Thanks to his superhuman strength, he managed to cut the mutant wild boar's neck. Warm blood spurted out from the wound and drenched his body. As the mutant wild boar let out a shriek, its body limped and fell to the ground with a loud sound. Boom! Dust and sand flew up due to the impact, creating a thick cloud that hindered their sight. Just after he killed the mutant wild boar, the rest of their team members also managed to kill the remaining wild boars. When the dust finally settled, Pei Yijun and his team heaved a sigh of relief. Looking around, he saw that although his members were injured, there were no casualties. He wiped the blood trickling down from the corner of his lips and said, Everyone, good job. We will take a rest and return to the base. Medic team, take care of the wounded. Logistics team, handle the mutant wild boars. Understood, the members replied in unison. Pei Yijun walked to the roadside with Li Yang's help. Soon after they sat down on the ground, Chu Zhimiao walked over with the first aid box. Chu Zhimiao squatted in front of them, opened the first aid box and asked, Brother Pei, are you okay? Pei Yijun nodded and replied, I'm fine, just a small injury. Hearing this, Chu Zhimiao said nothing and used scissors to cut his pants. When she saw the long, deep wound on his thigh, she created a ball of water to clean the blood. Afterward, she used alcohol and a cotton ball to clean the dust from the wound. When she was done, she applied some medicine and wrapped the wound with a clean bandage. Only when she was finished did she say, Brother Pei, you have to go to the infirmary after we return. Your wound is deep, and it might be infected if you leave it untreated. I know, thank you, Pei Yijun replied with a smile. Sitting beside him, Li Yang said, I never expected us to encounter these mutant wild boars as soon as we left the base. We are not even 10 kilometers away from the base. Just imagining the consequences of these mutant wild boars attacking the base sent a chill down his spine. Even with so many ability users, their team still suffered greatly. If the commoners were attacked by the mutant wild boars, they would be killed instantly. It seems that we have to increase the patrols around the base. I will inform my father after we return. Pei Yijun nodded in agreement. After resting for 1 hour, Pei Yijun and his team packed up and returned to the base. Along the way, they saw many mercenary teams returning empty-handed. Those who returned with their loot suffered heavy injuries and were shrouded by gloomy moods. From their expressions and the bloodstains on their clothes, everyone knew that other teams were not as lucky as them. With this realization, the team members' expressions turned solemn, and some of them trembled in fear. Sitting in another car, Pei Yijun didn't notice that half of his team members were traumatized by the battle they had just experienced. At this moment, his satellite phone suddenly rang. "Stop the car," he said before picking up the call. Li Yang knew that the signal of the satellite phone might be disturbed if he continued driving, so he parked the car on the roadside while Chu Zhimiao informed the team using her walkie-talkie to drive back to the base. "Hello," Pei Yijun said. "Boss, it's me," a clear female voice came from the phone. Recognizing the voice, Pei Yijun asked, "Did you find Yixi's location?" "Young Miss is currently staying at the Linen City base. I saw her selling things in the marketplace." "How is she doing? Did she get injured?" Pei Yijun asked again. This time, a hint of worry could be heard in his tone. "Young Miss is doing well. From the information I managed to gather, she joined the Phantom team." Hearing this, Pei Yijun went silent for a moment before he said, "Keep an eye on her. If she is in danger, make sure to protect her life. I will go visit her personally." "Understood," the other replied before hanging up the call. Sitting in the driver's seat, Li Yang continued to drive while asking, "Brother Pei, did our people find your sister?" Pei Yijun nodded and said, "I might need to go to the Linen City base to bring her back personally." The moment he said this, Li Yang said, "Brother Pei, I will go with you." "I will go with you too," Chu Zhimiao added. "The situation in our base is not stable yet. We have to clear the mutant animals around the base's safe perimeter first before we can leave," Pei Yijun said after thinking for a moment. Recalling something, Chu Zhimiao said, "Brother Pei, can you leave the base? Will the commander put you under house arrest again?" Hearing this, Pei Yijun narrowed his eyes, and a killing intent flashed for a moment. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, he had calmed down. "Even if he is my father and the commander of the Jiangning City base, he has no right to control me. I will leave, and no one can stop me," he said coldly. Both Li Yang and Chu Zhimiao exchanged glances. They didn't know what had happened between Pei Yijun and his father, but after he was released from his house arrest, he no longer listened to his father. He even seemed to harbor a killing intent toward him. During the journey back to the base, the two of them decided to keep their doubts and confusion to themselves, and said nothing. 1 hour later, Pei Yijun and his team arrived at the Jiangning City base. At this moment, the gate of the base was crowded with survivors who had come from the nearby areas. Most of them had managed to survive the second rain by luck. Since no one received any warning from the leaders of their survivor camps or small bases, they hadn't avoided the rain. Those who had no water even used the rainwater for daily use and drinking water. Because of this, the casualties during the second rain were several times higher than the casualties at Linen City. Right now, most of the people waiting to enter the base were ability users. While they had only just awakened their abilities, their physical condition and strength were above ordinary people. So, the Pei family decided to recruit them as guards or workers. When Chu Zhimiao saw how pale and thin the survivors were, she clenched her fists and turned her head. She felt upset knowing that she could help them by giving them some water, but she couldn't do anything. What Li Yang and Zhao Lijai had said before was right. Since she couldn't help everyone, it was better for her to do nothing. If she helped some but couldn't help the rest, she would only bring trouble for herself and her team. Now that she had experienced the cruelty of a human's heart in the past 3 months, Chu Zhimiao no longer insisted on helping others. If she was able to, she would help. If she wasn't able to, she wouldn't. Although it sounded simple, it had taken her a long time to accept this harsh truth and act on it. When they reached the gate, one of the guards stopped them. Li Yang lowered the window and greeted the guard. "Brother, how is the situation?" Seeing that it was Pei Yijun's team, the guard saluted them and replied, "A lot of new survivors arrived this morning. but the commander already ordered us to block them outside. At this moment, we only took in the ability users. Hearing this, Aitg frowned and asked, "Why didn't the commander let the ordinary people in? Didn't we just collect a batch of supplies yesterday?" The guard shook his head and said, "Young master, I don't know the reason. The commander only said that those who go against the order would be banished from the base directly." From the guard's words, they knew the seriousness of this matter. Aitg's frown deepened as he said, "Just let the ordinary people stay outside the wall first. I will go ask the commander personally." The guard let out a sigh of relief and said, "Understood." Aitg and his team underwent an inspection first at the tent near the gate before they were allowed to enter the base. The moment they entered, Li Yang sent him to the main command building before he and the rest of the team returned to their residences. As soon as Aitg came out of the car, he entered the building and went directly to the elevator. The staff members and the guards knew his identity, and no one stopped him. 10 minutes later, he knocked on his father's office door and waited for a moment. "Come in." Opening the door, Aitg entered the office and saw a young woman standing up from his father's lap. Disgust flashed in his cold eyes for a moment. When he stood in front of his father's desk, his eyes had already returned to normal. "What brought you here?" Aitg asked. Aitg glanced at the woman and said nothing. Noticing this, Aitg waved his hand, and the woman walked out of the office while fixing her clothes. When the door closed, Aitg finally asked, "Why did you forbid the ordinary people from entering the base? The situation outside the base is more dangerous than before. The mutant animals were found only several kilometers away from our base's perimeter. You know that the situation outside is dangerous, and it makes it harder for us to acquire supplies. At this moment, we can only limit the number of our base's population to ensure that we have enough supplies to survive," Aitg replied calmly. "Even so, the supplies my team brought back should be enough for everyone to last for at least 2 weeks. Those people might not awaken their abilities, but they are still able to do hard labor. We need a lot of manpower to strengthen our wall and build our base," Aitg argued. "What's more, if you refuse them, we might even miss talented people. Besides recruiting ability users to increase our base's attack power, we still have to recruit talented people such as doctors, nurses, teachers, researchers, and other professions. We can't just..." Before he finished his words, Aitg raised his hand and interrupted him. "Enough." After a moment of pause, he said, "I know what I'm doing and how the situation is in our base. I have my own considerations in this matter. You don't have to worry about this and should focus on your duty of collecting supplies and clearing the zombies and mutants instead." Aitg clenched his jaw when he saw how his father dismissed his words lightly and treated him as if he were a boy who knew nothing. Compared to before the apocalypse, he had experienced the feeling of losing his close friends and comrades, and had watched how ordinary people died due to zombie attacks or used by others as meat shields or baits, without even having a chance to fight back. He always thought that as long as he did his best, with his family holding control over this base, he and his father would be able to create a safe place for everyone. But after what his father had done in the past few weeks, he realized that he couldn't bet everyone's lives on his father alone. He had to do something himself and found another way. After reaching this conclusion, he lowered his head and replied, "I understand." Aitg observed his son for a moment before he nodded in satisfaction. "Aitg, you are my heir. As long as you listen to me, you will stand at the pinnacle of the pyramid one day." This time, Aitg didn't reply to his father's words and left the office in large strides. After he left, the young woman entered the office, and soon after he heard the sound of the woman's moaning and his father's obscene words. He looked at the closed door and thought that since his father had different goals than him, they wouldn't be able to work together anymore. With this thought, Aitg returned to his team's headquarters. When he reached his team's headquarters, it was already past 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Seeing him coming, the members greeted him, "Captain." Aitg nodded at them and asked, "Has everyone gone to the infirmary for a checkup and treatment?" "Brother Pei, some of our members need to stay in the infirmary for further observation. The rest of us only suffered some skin injuries," Chu Zhimao replied. "Captain, you were also injured. Have you gone to the infirmary for treatment?" one of the team members asked. Aitg took a seat on the couch and said, "I will go later. Right now, I have something to discuss with you all." After the members took their seats, Aitg said, "I believe that everyone has already seen the situation in this base and how the higher-ups refuse to let the ordinary people in." The members nodded and waited for his next words. When I first created this team, I wanted to do something so we could build a safe place for everyone, for our family, our friends, and for the next generation. But now that the higher-ups no longer have the same goal as us, I don't see any point in staying here, Aitg said. Hearing this, the members were taken aback. Everyone knew his identity as the commander's son. If even he didn't want to stay in this place, then how corrupted and rotten were the leaders of this base? After a moment of silence, Li Yang asked, "Brother Pei, do you have any plans?" Aitg nodded and said, "I received information from our members about the situation in several cities. Besides the capital that has fallen, most of the cities faced a similar situation to ours. At this moment, besides the Xianing City base and the Green River base in Sanchu City, only the Linen City base managed to control the situation and accept the ordinary people." "Brother Pei, are you planning to go there and join Linen City?" Chu Zhimiao asked. "I want to see if the Linen City base is as good as our member said. What's more, my sister is staying there and I need to go see her," Aitg replied. Everyone exchanged glances after they heard this. While the situation in this base was not as good as they thought, as ability users, they were still able to have a comfortable life here. If they went to another base, there was no guarantee that they could have the same comfortable life as in this place. What's more, they still had their families here. They couldn't just leave them behind. Noticing their hesitation, Aitg said, "I won't force anyone to follow me. You can decide whether to stay here or follow me." "Boss, if we follow you, what about our family? We can't just leave them behind and go with you," one of the members asked. "While I can't guarantee that we will have a better life in Linen City, I can promise you that I will do my best to protect your family and make sure that they won't starve," Aitg replied firmly. The main concern of the members was their families. Since the captain already promised them, they chose to believe him. "Captain, I need to discuss this matter with my family first. Can you give us some time?" the member asked. "We will leave in 3 days at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you decide to follow me, you can bring your family here before we depart," Aitg nodded. "Understood," the members nodded. After they discussed this matter, Aitg went to the infirmary to check on his injuries, while Li Yang and the team members cleaned up the mutant wild boar and processed them. The blood of the mutant wild boar could be consumed or used as medicine, so they stored it in iron barrels. The hide of the mutant wild boar would be made into leather and sewn into clothes, so they kept it. The bones and tusks would be sold to the base as weapons materials. As for the meat, they took half for their own consumption and sold the rest to the base for crystal cores later. While they were processing the wild boar, Chu Zhimiao found a transparent crystal core the size of a marble in one of the wild boar's brains. Seeing this, she said, "Li Yang, look at this." Everyone turned to look at her and saw the crystal core. Compared to the crystal cores found inside a zombie's head, this one was more transparent. Li Yang took the crystal core and tried to absorb the energy. The moment he felt the warm energy, he was stunned. He only tried to see if this crystal core was the same as the zombie's crystal cores. Unexpectedly, the energy inside this crystal core was purer and easier to absorb. This crystal core has purer energy compared to the zombie's crystal cores. The amount of energy is also 20% more. "We should keep this crystal core for an emergency," he said. Hearing this, everyone was delighted and went to check the rest of the mutant wild boars. Out of 9 mutant wild boars, they only found 2 crystal cores, one the size of a marble and another the size of a pinky nail. Since these crystal cores were more valuable than the zombies' crystal cores, they decided to hand them over to their captain. Meanwhile, at the border of Yunshan City, Rong Kinyu and his team were on their way to Linen City. He glanced at his girlfriend, who was looking out the window, and asked, "Ziu, what are you thinking about?" Feng Ziu was pulled out of her thoughts by his question. She turned to look at him and said, "Kinyu, are you sure that when you found me I was still alive?" "Why are you asking this suddenly? Didn't I tell you that you were in a coma when I rescued you from the Yunshan City base?" Rong Kinyu asked her back. "But why do I always feel that I died after being assassinated by someone who impersonated you?" she muttered with a frown. Rong Kinyu slowed down the speed of his car and reached out to pat her head. He smiled and said, "You are overthinking things. When you are in a coma, you lose your consciousness. So how can you be so sure that you died?" Feng Ziu stared at her hands and fell silent. Seeing her like this, Rong Kinyu's smile faded, and he said nothing. Although he managed to resurrect his girlfriend, the side effect of the liquid solution still affected her memories. Even her personality had changed subtly. Fortunately, she didn't experience the worst side effects of that thing. The two of them drove in silence, while the members of his team were anxious to find a place to rest. At sunset, Ronkinyu and his team finally found a 2-story minimarket near the roadside. When they parked their cars, they didn't come out directly but waited for a while. Sitting inside the cars, they listened to the surroundings. When they didn't hear any zombie roars or animal sounds, they finally came out of the cars. With a backpack on their backs and holding a weapon, the group walked toward the building in light steps. They observed the surroundings as they walked, just to make sure not to get ambushed by mutant beasts or zombies. Reaching the door, they noticed a heavy shelf blocking it. Seeing this, they knew that this place had been claimed by someone, and as they guessed, not long after, a man stood behind the shelf and said, "This place is taken. Find another place." "Comrade, we only need a place to stay the night," Ronkinyu replied. When the man heard this, he looked at them for a while before he said, "You can stay for the night, but the supply in this place is mine." Noticing the darkened sky, Ronkinyu nodded. "Okay." After they reached an agreement, the man asked his team to remove the shelf and let Ronkinyu and his team enter the building. As soon as they came in, the man and his team locked the door and blocked it with the shelf again. Seeing this, Fengxiu asked, "Comrade, I didn't see any zombies or mutant beasts in this area. Is there a need for you to block the door like this?" Hearing this, the man sneered and replied, "It's never hurt to take a precaution. We never know what will happen next. If you lower your guard, you will lose your life." Fengxiu didn't say anything more after she heard this, but she noticed that the man and his group were uneasy when the night came. The man pointed at the corner of the minimarket and said, "You can stay there." Ronkinyu and his team nodded and went to the corner. They had just resupplied this morning, so they had enough food and water to last for 3 days in their backpacks. Sitting in the corner, they saw that the supplies in this minimarket had been moved to the counter. Judging from the size, the room behind the counter must be used to store the supplies. After all, the shelves were empty. After traveling for a long time, everyone was tired. At this moment, they only wanted to have a good sleep, but with strangers eyeing them, they had to keep watch. So Ronkinyu said, "We will take turns keeping watch. Moore and I will watch the second half." "Brother Dakshing and I will keep watch on the first half," a thin young man said. "Okay, everyone should get some sleep," Ronkinyu nodded. When they finished arranging the night watch, they finished their dinner and closed their eyes to sleep. While they were taking a rest, the man sitting across from them glanced at one of his team members and said in a hushed voice, "Have you prepared everything for tonight?" The young man nodded and replied, "Boss, don't worry. Tonight we will make sure that everything will go as planned." Hearing this, the man nodded and said, "Good. As long as we have enough bait, we can kill that thing when it's in hibernation." The members of his team exchanged glances as hopes lit in their eyes. It wasn't easy for them to hold on for so long until this group of people came. As long as they managed to kill that thing tonight, all of their efforts and sacrifices would be worth it. While Ronkinyu and his team were resting, the man and his team were watching them like hunters, fearing the prey would fly away. At midnight, they finally heard rushing sounds outside. One of the men went to the window to have a look. The moment he saw countless vines crawling toward the building, blood drained from his face. He quickly went to report to his boss with a pale face, "Boss, it's here." "Lower your voice," the boss warned him. "Boss, what should we do now?" The one he called boss turned to another member and asked, "Have you knocked them out?" A woman nodded and replied, "I have used my poison on them. They shouldn't be able to wake up for several hours." "Good, carry them to the second floor. After we feed the thing, we will kill it after half an hour," the boss nodded. Following his order, his team members went to Ronkinyu's team. After checking that they were unconscious, they quickly carried them to the second floor. Seeing that the vine almost reached the window, the boss said, "Throw them out, quick." Without wasting time, they opened the window and threw Ronkinyu out. Unexpectedly, the moment they opened the window, he opened his eyes and grabbed the collar of one of the men. Duag. After he kicked away another person holding his legs, he flipped his body and threw the man out. "Ah, save me," the man shouted in horror as he fell from the second floor. Crash, crash, crash. The next moment, countless thin vines rushed toward him. Before he even hit the ground, his body was pierced by the vines and torn apart. Warm blood splashed on the ground and covered the vines. As if a hunter finally got its prey, the vines dragged the flesh and retreated toward the bushes across the street. Seeing this, Rongkinyu felt a chill run down his spine. If he and his team hadn't guarded against these people, the one being torn apart would have been him. When the group saw that one of them had been killed, they were angry and the boss said, "Damn it, he is awake." The woman was shocked when she saw this and said in disbelief, "Impossible. My poison can knock out even a level 2 ability user. How come he is not affected?" While they had not yet regained their composure, Feng Xiu opened her eyes, pulled out her dagger, and attacked the man standing nearby. Stab! The moment the dagger pierced the man's thigh, he let out a scream. Ah! The scream successfully pulled the group back to their senses. When they realized that they were tricked, Rongkinyu and his team had already subdued them. Pressing a dagger to the boss's throat, Rongkinyu asked, "What is that thing?" The boss felt the pain on his neck and broke out in a cold sweat. He raised his hands and said, "Brother, please be careful with your dagger." "Talk or I will throw you out," Rongkinyu said as he pressed the dagger closer to his neck. As soon as blood flowed from his neck, the boss quickly said, "Brother, we didn't know what that thing was. It only appeared after midnight and disappeared at dawn." "Since it only appeared at night time, why don't you leave during the day?" Feng Xiu asked. "Sister, it's not that we didn't want to leave, but we can't leave. When we tried to leave before, as soon as we went out, we would be attacked by countless vines. We had lost lots of brothers. We can't take that risk anymore," the woman replied. "You can't take risks, so you use others as bait." Feng Xiu narrowed her eyes. "We didn't want to do this either, but we had no other choice. That thing will go into hibernation after eating at least 5 people. When it stops moving, we plan to kill it. We also did it so it won't harm others," the boss said. After they heard this, Rongkinyu's eyes turned cold as he said, "Since we need 5 people to feed that thing, then you and your team can do it." The boss and his team members looked at him with horror when they heard this. Before they could say a word, he added, "Don't worry. My team will make sure to kill that thing to avenge you and your team." As soon as he finished his words, the thin vines returned. Seeing this, he ordered, "Throw them out." "No, please, ah." Before they could struggle free, Rongkinyu's team members had already grabbed them and thrown them out. Perhaps because lots of prey suddenly appeared, the mutant plant finally showed up. Standing on the window, Feng Xiu stared at a massive Venus flytrap. The edge of the plant was stained with blood, and some torn flesh could be seen on the digestive glands. "So it's a man-eating plant," Daxing said with shock. "Let's go," Rongkinyu said before he jumped out of the window. While the mutant plant was busy dragging the prey into its trap, Rongkinyu and his team had already jumped out of the building. Standing on the vines, they could feel the throbbing under their feet. After waking up, Feng Xiu hadn't tried her ability yet. She didn't know if she was still able to use her ability or not. She glanced at the nearby traffic sign and raised her hand. As she focused her energy on her palm, the traffic sign shook for a moment before it pulled out of the road. Seeing that she was still able to control the metal, Feng Xiu was delighted. Waving her hand, the traffic sign turned into a long spear and flew toward the mutant plant at a fast speed. Whoosh tilde clang. Before the spear managed to pierce the Venus flytrap, it was blocked by the vines. After they blocked the attack, the vines rushed toward her. The tips of the vines were as sharp as needles. If the vines pierced her body, she would be severely injured. Seeing this, Rongkinyu shouted while he rushed toward her, "Azu, be careful." Crack, crack, crack. The next moment, a metal wall appeared behind him as he hugged his girlfriend. With the metal wall blocking the attack, he circled his arms around her waist and leaped to the side. Seeing this, the rest of his team members pulled out their weapons and rushed toward the Venus flytrap. Daxing clenched his fist, and the next moment, his fist was covered with stones. Boom! He aimed his punch at the glands, but his attack was blocked by the vines. "These vines are too annoying. Xyroxing, burn it," Daxing shouted. "Brother, leave it to me," the thin young man replied and sent several fireballs toward the vines. Boom, booms, boom. The fireballs exploded upon contact and burned the vines. With the fire burning the vines, the Venus flytrap let out a high-pitched shriek. The sound made them feel dizzy, while the boss and his team members spat out mouthfuls of blood. "Everyone be careful, it's a sound attack," Feng Xiu reminded them. While they were still feeling dizzy, countless vines rushed toward them and bound their limbs. Except for Rongkinyu and Feng Xiu, who managed to dodge the vines, everyone was caught and suspended midair. Daxing tried to free himself, but he felt his energy draining at a terrifying speed. In less than a minute, his forehead was covered with cold sweat. "This thing is absorbing our energy," he said weakly. Ronkinyu narrowed his eyes and raised his hand. The next moment, the metal spear on the ground floated and turned into a metal net. With a wave of his hand, the metal net flew toward the mutant plant. As the vines blocked the net, it turned into countless small needles and pierced the mutant plant's body. The mutant plant let out a shriek, but the needles had already entered its stalk and stems. With the needles destroying it from the inside, the vines loosened and the members fell to the ground with a thud. Although their energy had been absorbed, it was only for a short time, so they were still able to fight. Xyroxing used most of his energy to create fireballs and burn the vines, while Daxing grabbed the Venus flytrap stalk and ripped it apart with his bare hand. At the same time, Fengxiu controlled the surrounding metals and used them to stab the Venus flytrap. With their combined efforts, adding Ronkinyu's needles stabbing the mutant plant's core from inside, they finally managed to kill it. While the battle lasted less than 10 minutes, they used up almost all of their energy and suffered some injuries. Seeing the Venus flytrap lay on the ground, Daxing ripped the stem and found a green crystal core the size of a pinky nail. He picked it up and handed it to Ronkinyu. "Brother, I never thought this mutant plant would also have a crystal core," he said. Ronkinyu checked the crystal core and said, "This crystal core might have higher value than the zombie's crystal core. Let's keep it for now." Daxing, Xyroxing, and Fengxiu nodded in agreement. After a moment, Fengxiu glanced at the people on the ground and asked, "What should we do about them?" "Brother, they dared to scheme against us. Should we kill them?" Xyroxing asked with killing intent flashed in his eyes. The moment the boss and his members heard this, they didn't dare to pretend to be unconscious anymore. They quickly knelt on the ground and said, "Brother, please spare our lives. We promise to never harm anyone anymore." Looking at their current situation, Ronkinyu finally said, "It's not impossible to let you go." When they heard this, their eyes lit up and they said in unison, "Thank you for sparing us, brother." Before they could praise him, Ronkinyu cut them off. "But you have to hand over all of your crystal cores. After sunrise, we will leave this place and you are free to go." Hearing this, they quickly nodded. After they entered the minimarket, they handed over their backpacks and went to the corner. After being stabbed in the back by them, Ronkinyu and Fengxiu didn't go back to sleep and kept an eye on them. At sunrise, they filled their cars with supplies and left the area. Sitting in the passenger seat, Fengxiu asked, "Kinyu, why didn't you kill them?" "There is no need to kill them. With their injuries, they won't be able to survive for long," Ronkinyu replied casually. Hearing this, Fengxiu stared at him while saying, "It's better to pull out the root of the problems." While they were able to kill those people, Ronkinyu didn't want to let his girlfriend kill too many people. After all, one of the side effects of the liquid he gave her was increased bloodlust. If she started killing several people now, she might end up as a killing machine in the future who would massacre humanity. He couldn't and wouldn't take this risk. Seeing that her boyfriend was unwilling to talk about this matter, Fengxiu closed her eyes and took a nap. While they were on their way to the Linen City base, Zhao Lijai had just finished processing the jerky made from the mutant eagle. Just after she came out of her space, she heard the doorbell. "Who is it?" she asked while she opened the door. The moment the door was opened, a phone was handed to her. She looked at Fuguari and read the words on the screen. Handing the phone back to him, she said, "Your meat jerky is ready, come in." Fuguari's eyes lit the moment he heard this. Now with a phone to converse, Pei Yixi no longer followed him like a little tail. While the two of them still stayed together in the condominium across from Zhao Lijai's, they no longer went everywhere together. After entering the condo, Fuguari took a seat on the couch with familiarity. Not long after, Zhao Lijai waved her hand and produced a pile of meat jerky packed in vacuum-sealed bags. The bags were packed inside boxes, with each box containing 50 bags, and each bag weighed 1 kilogram. There were a total of 73 boxes. Seeing the snacks, Fuguari typed on his phone and showed it to Zhao Lijai. "Sister-in-law, I will take 5 boxes back. Please help me keep the rest, thank you." Zhao Lijai nodded after reading the message and replied, "No problem. If you want to get the rest, just let me know." Fuguari nodded and left while carrying 5 boxes. When he got back to his home, he saw Pei Yixi counting the crystal cores in the living room. Seeing him back, she raised her head and said, "Brother Fu, you are back." Noticing the backpack near her leg, he raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you going out?" Hearing his thoughts, Aitg nodded and said, "Something happened, and I might have to leave for now." "How long will you be gone?" he asked again. Aitg went silent for a moment before she replied, "I don't know. If possible, I will return in a month, but if things are not going as planned, I might not be returning at all." When Fuguari heard this, he frowned and asked, "What happened?" After hesitating for a while, Aitg finally replied, "My family found out about my location. I don't want to go back, so I have to leave for now." "Can't you ask the captain to help you?" "If my family found out about his identity, it would put him in a dangerous situation. I can't pull him into this mess." Noticing that she was serious about leaving without informing anyone, Fuguari put down the boxes in his hands and walked over to her. Reaching out, he grabbed her wrist and said, "Since this matter has something to do with the captain, then the more you have to tell him." As soon as he finished his words, he pulled her up and led her to find Jin Zuyan. Knowing that he was worried about her, Aitg didn't resist and let him pull her along. The two of them walked to the third ring area. When they reached their team's store, they saw Jin Zuyan and the Phantom team's members having breakfast there. Noticing Fuguari and Aitg were coming over, Xirokai waved at them and said, "Brother Fu-Yixi, both of you came at the right time. Aunt Shen just finished cooking a pot of noodles for us." Fuguari nodded at them and pulled Aitg to sit with the members. The store was large, and there were lots of tables and chairs inside, but the long table located at the corner was reserved for the Phantom team. After they took a seat, he typed on his phone and showed the message to his captain. Jin Zuyan read the message, and after a moment he turned to his stepsister and said, "Since they are coming, we shouldn't let them go back empty-handed." Hearing this, Aitg stared at her stepbrother with wide eyes and asked, "Are you telling me to go back with them?" "If you are unwilling, no one can force you. You are now an ability user registered under the Linen City base. Even if they want to take you back by force, they have to ask Commander Zun if he agrees to it," Jin Zuyan replied casually. After hearing her brother's words, Aitg's eyes lit up. She was used to escaping and forgot that she was no longer her father's useless pawn. With the Linen City base and the Phantom team as her backing, unless the members of the facility came personally to catch her, she no longer had to fear the people sent by her father. Reaching this conclusion, her panic settled down and her hanging heart returned to its place. She patted her forehead and said, "Brother, you are right. With Commander Zun in our team, I don't have to worry about anything." While the members didn't understand what they were talking about, Feng Yun still said, "Yixi, if you need our help, just let us know." Wen Kai nodded and added, "You are our youngest sister. If you need anything, just let your brothers know. We won't let anyone bully you." After so many years, this was the first time Aitg had experienced the so-called brother's protection. She felt her nose sore, and she quickly lowered her head. After a moment, she nodded and said hoarsely, "Thank you, brothers." Soon after, Shen Jinj walked over holding a tray. He placed a bowl of noodles in front of Fuguari and Aitg while saying, "Eat before it turns cold." "Okay," Aitg nodded and started eating. The egg noodles were warm and comforting. Due to the big appetite of the ability users, the bowls used in their store were huge. One bowl was equivalent to 2 bowls of normal portions. While the price was a little bit higher, the amount was generous. After they finished their breakfast, Jin Zuyan glanced at his stepsister and said, "Follow me." Aitg noticed his sharp stare and could only follow him back to his condominium. As for the rest of the members, they went to do their own tasks. Those who needed to supply water went to report to the water reservoir area. Those who needed to help with the crops went to report to the farmland area. The rest of them either went to do some small missions around the base to clear out the zombies and mutants, or went to help fix the wall and damaged buildings. As for Chin Luzi, he went to report to Wen Hanley directly, as he was tasked to patrol the base to make sure that they were not infested with any zombified animals. An hour later, Jin Zuyan opened the door and saw his fiancée filling a small water tank in the kitchen. Hearing footsteps, Zhao Lijai turned and said, "Yixi, you are here." Jin Zuyan gestured for his stepsister to take a seat and asked, "Are you planning to escape from them again?" The moment she heard his words, Yixi raised her head and asked with surprise, "Brother, do you know about them?" "I had long known about Pei Zun's plan. I even know who the spies sent by him are," Jin Zuyan replied calmly. Hearing this, Yixi was stunned for a moment before she asked, "Brother, did you plant someone beside him?" Jin Zuyan didn't reply, but his silence already confirmed Pei Yixi's guess about the spies. The question was who the spies were. If they were able to get such detailed information, then the spies should have a high enough position to access the information. When she reached this conclusion, an image of a man flashed in her mind. This person only joined the Pei family's side 3 years ago, but in such a short time, he was able to receive her father's trust and become his right-hand man. It was as if he knew exactly what her father wanted and liked. Thinking about times when this person often helped her solve her problems and even visited her regularly, she asked, "Is it Yuan Ruyu?" This time, Jin Zuyan raised his eyebrows when he heard her guess and asked her back, "Why do you think it's him?" Pei Yixi went silent for a moment before she said, "Brother, thank you. I didn't know that you had sent someone to protect me 3 years ago." Jin Zuyan looked at her, recalled her tragic ending as the facility's test subject, and let out a long sigh. He was unable to protect them in his past life, and it became his lifetime regret. But in this life, he would make sure they wouldn't end up in the facility's hands anymore. "I have a blood feud with the Pei family, but both you and Yijun are still my younger siblings. I can't just watch the two of you being harmed without doing anything." In the kitchen, Zhao Lijai listened to their conversation and was lost in thought. She didn't know what her fiancé had experienced in their previous life, as they never talked to each other, even when they crossed paths occasionally during missions. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.